Welcome back to the channel. Today we open with a hard truth from the front. Wars are won by men you never see, and by machines you rarely notice. By the time infantry clears a trench or a tank crests a ridge, the real decision may already have been made by artillery batteries you never visited, and aircraft that vanished into cloud minutes before the push. In this episode, we travel from Kursk to Normandy, from the Tunisia hills to the Ardennes, showing how maps, math, fuses and fuel made fire truly decisive. We examine pre-planned barrages, time-on-target shoots, counter-battery hunts, interdiction strikes, and the harsh logistics that kept guns talking under heat, dust, water and cold. Expect names, dates, calibers and after-action cause and effect. By the end, you'll be able to hear a barrage in your mind and know exactly why it's arranged that way, and what it will do to men, machines and morale. Section 1. Spoiling fire. When the battle starts before dawn, July 5th, 1943-02-20, north of Belgorod, USSR. The steppe is black glass under a low ceiling. Red Army observers mark a clock face around Kursk. At 02:20, they order a preemptive bombardment into German assembly areas. Soviet batteries stacked in depth light the horizon. It's not spectacle, it's scheduling. The goal is not to annihilate an enemy that isn't yet exposed, but to pull apart the zipper that holds an attack together. March tables, radio nets, morale, and the crucial first hour when momentum is cheap and confusion is expensive. This is spoiling fire, and it lives on timing us. The Soviets had interrogated patterns, where panzer units staged, where Nebelwerfer and Packfront guns waited, where engineer columns pre-positioned bridging gear. They fired first to force late starts, to shock drivers, to scatter liaison, and especially to make officers wait for orders that didn't arrive on time. When the German opening artillery replied, it had already lost its preferred clock. And a timetable without a clock is just noise. Across the war, the army that could start the invisible battle early tended to own the visible one later. El Alamein, October 23, 1942. The British 8th Army opens with a massive artillery plan to bite and hold. Gun density, not drama, is the key. Observation posts, flash spotting and sound ranging build a living map of enemy batteries. The first night isn't about killing all the guns. It's about teaching them to keep their heads down, to disrupt their counter-preparation, and to leave infantry to cross belts with fewer surprises. Spoiling works in reverse too. Anzio Winter, 1944. German long-range pieces, including the famous railgun the Allies nicknamed Anzio Annie, discipline Allied movements with sudden heavy shells. The lesson is symmetrical. The first accurate weight on the scale throws off everything after it. Artillery used as anti-schedule is as lethal as artillery used as anti-personnel. Why does this matter? Because firepower is choreography. If you can jam an overture, you cheapen an enemy's most expensive minute. The first minute of an attack, when formation, fuel and morale are aligned. By forcing hasty deviation, you convert designed plans into improvised fragments. And improvised fragments walk into ambushes they can't see. Mechanically, spoiling fire requires three things. 1. Observation that survives enemy deception, hence redundant OPs. Aerial photography and locals reports cross-checked against prior patterns. 2. Ammunition on hand, not on the road. If you plan a pre-dawn stroke and your trucks are still queued at a choke point, you have illusions, not artillery. 3. A clock shared across units, time signals, wire nets, and pre-arranged lifts that prevent drifting fires from masking your own infantry. Soviet practice around Kursk is the masterclass. They layered guns by mission, frontline regimental guns for immediate defensive fires, corps-level medium artillery for concentrations, and counter-battery, and guards mortar brigades for area shock. The deepest secret is not the rocket roar, it's the calendar, and the discipline to fire before your nerves want to. Continue Section 2, the geometry of barrage, from map shoot to time on target. Previous section text continues seamlessly from this section. March 23, 1943. 0630 El Guettar, Tunisia. American artillery at El Guettar demonstrates a distinctly American idea, the time-on-target TOT shoot. Pick a grid square, calculate time of flight for each battery at its distance, and then fire at different moments, so that the shells arrive simultaneously over the target. To the enemy, it feels like a trapdoor from the sky. No obvious walking crescendo, just instant steel saturation, and then silence, and then another pattern a few minutes later, in a new grid. The Tuicourt batteries use TOT to break the tempo of 10th Panzer. Tanks roll forward in confidence and then disappear in instantaneous dirt geysers. Engine covers slam. Radio nets go loud. And a unit that is supposed to be one organism becomes dozens of small organisms negotiating their own survival. Totally different technique. Same geometry. The British and Canadians perfect the creeping barrage, a moving curtain of airbursts or impact shells that advances by yardage and minutes. Infantry are drilled to follow at a set distance, usually 100-150 yards behind the wall. If they lag, they grant defenders recovery time. If they rush, they risk walking into their own steel. The art is spacing, the science is clock discipline. Map shoots are the quieter miracle. Instead of fire by eye, you shoot by math. Survey your guns precisely. Align direction with the director compass or aiming posts. Compute meteor data, wind, temperature, density, and fire without seeing the target first. When observers later adjust, they are polishing, not searching. That's why modern ears never hear the greatest artillery feat of all, accurate fire without dramatic trial rounds. Men lived because someone you never knew understood refraction, powder lot variability, and a crosswind that you didn't feel in your trench. Case study, Operation Cobra, July 25, 1944. The pre-assault bombing west of St. Lo shows the limits of brute force. Yes, heavy bombs open the crust, but poorly aligned bombing and wind drift cause friendly casualties in forward American zones. Artillery's answer is the disciplined post-bombardment plan, fires that anchor the edges, that signal lanes, that correct for the chaos of the airstrike's blast geometry. After the air, guns matter more, not less, because they deliver precision in time rather than spectacle in space. They knit the breach into lanes infantry and armor can trust. Case study, the Ortona and Casino problems, winter 1943-44. Urban rubble swallows artillery energy, and steep slopes bounce splinters unpredictably. The fix isn't bigger guns. It's smarter fuses and angle of fall choices, steeper trajectories, delayed action fuse to penetrate then burst, coordinated with armor at mouse-holing ranges. If you don't choose, you get noise, not effect. If you do choose, your infantry moves building to building with pre-cleared corners and a lower heart rate. Behind all this is an accounting truth. Barrage patterns only live if ammo lives near the guns. A perfect fire plan without tonnage is set dressing. The Red Ball Express doesn't just feed tanks, it feeds the gunnery clock. A tote without he on site is a missed appointment. And missed appointments cost blood. Continue section 3, counter battery. Finding the predator you can't see previous section text continues seamlessly from this section. June 6, 1944, 0550 of Pointe du Hoc, Normandy. As the fleet turns its broadsides, Allied naval gunfire becomes the longest arm of counter battery. Destroyers like USS Satterley and battleships like USS Texas hurl heavy shells to knock out shore guns that can murder landing craft. But the best counter battery that day isn't just weight, it's adjustment. Spotters with radios walking splashes onto casemates. The sea gives you stable platforms, long barrels, and predictable powder temps. The shore gives you smoke and concealment. Counter battery is a conversation where the other side refuses to speak your language. On land, two old arts do the new killing: flash spotting and sound ranging. Locate the bright mouth of a gun with triangulated bearings, or triangulate the sound wave times between microphones across a baseline. The map returns a grid with a confidence ellipse. Fire for effect, then watch for silence. A battery that stops talking isn't always dead. Sometimes it's smart, and that's why the Allies actively hunted not just guns but ammo points, phone lines, registration stakes, and observers. Kill the eyes and the throat, and the hands will fall quiet by themselves. Case study, the Anzio Bowl, early 1944. Allied guns fight a duel on a chessboard where every square can be hit. German long-range pieces and Navalwerfer deliver panic in psychological packets. The weird scream of spin-stabilized rockets matters as much as steel. Allied counter-battery builds spreadsheets before spreadsheets had a name. Shells per hour by grid, likely displacement drills, decoys versus genuine. The winners aren't louder. They are quicker at the paperwork of war. Case study, Ardennes, December 1944. The US deploys the VT proximity fuse for artillery, producing airbursts over troops in woods and open snowfield. Suddenly, foxholes are less safe because the lethal pattern arrives from above. Elsenborn Ridge sees German infantry attacks wither under timed airbursts and coordinated TOTs. And a German plan built on fog and surprise meets an American clock that no longer needs eyes on trenches to kill men inside them. Case study. Normandy hedgerows, summer 1944. German pack guns and mortars wait in short fields with tall walls. Artillery cannot simply flatten bocage. It must cut keys for the locks. A pair of concentrations to the next field corners, a smokescreen down a hedgerow, a VT airburst over an orchard to make traversing crews keep their heads low. Then the hedgerow cutter on a Sherman makes the gap, infantry flows, and the next clock starts. Counter-battery here is not single targets. It is counter-pattern. Erase the predictable enemy reply so you can be the first to write the next sentence. The doctrine behind it all. Observation redundancy. Communication survivability and deception. The battery you want to kill must believe you are looking elsewhere. So you feed him phantom OPs, leave dummy wire that leads to nowhere, and let him walk his fire onto fake mortar lines that never existed. Somewhere else, the real OP speaks quietly in 3 words. Shot, splash, repeat. Continue section 4. Interdiction. When air power loads the artillery's dice, previous section text continues seamlessly from this section. August 7th, 1944. Morning west of Mortain, Normandy. German armor lunges to counterattack. Overhead, P-47 Thunderbolts answer the radio calls of ground controllers. Rockets, 50 cal fire, and bombs rake columns. This is interdiction. Air power that breaks the flow of an enemy's ability to fight before he meets your main line. Artillery doesn't shoot the trucks beyond the horizon. Aircraft do. And then your guns mop up what arrives in tatters. Case study, Falaise Pocket, August 1944. Bridges, junctions, and choke roads become kill switches. Blow the bridge, and movement becomes a file of anxious vehicles along detours. File them and you simplify their geometry for artillery. Add smoke on the wrong road at the right time to herd columns. Fight logistics, win battles. A battery with good map sense becomes a traffic engineer with explosives. Case study, Guadalcanal, 1942-43. The US Marines defend Henderson Field under nightly naval bombardments and ground raids. Daylight air sorties chew at Japanese barge traffic and trails. Each night, the Japanese deliver just enough pain, but not enough ammunition to break the airfield's daily cycle. Artillery and air together create a rationing regime for the enemy. Food, shells, and medical supplies arrive too slowly. Men fight less as soldiers and more as survivors. Case study, Italian campaign 1943-44. The spine of Italy is built for ambush and attrition. Air cuts the roads. Artillery holds the choke points. And infantry passes only when one crossroads too many has lost its signpost. At Anzio, interdiction throttles German reinforcement capacity. At Monte Cassino, bad weather blunts air advantage, but places more weight on artillery geometry, steeper angles, delayed fuses, and constant counter-mortar hunts. Operation Cobra revisited. The lesson is not that air wins or artillery wins, it is that integration wins. When bombs wander, guns restore order. When guns cannot reach, aircraft extend the hand. When both speak the same grid language, armor and infantry receive a gift more precious than firepower: predictability. A platoon leader turns his head, sees a smoke line where it was promised, and his men move not in panic but in plan. Finally, interdiction scales the moral gradient of war. Men who are never allowed to arrive on time become men who stop believing in time. And once you break faith with the clock, you stop being an army and start being a crowd. Continue. Section 5. The 4 riders, heat, dust, water, cold, and the math of survivability. Previous section text continues seamlessly from this section. January 1945. Night north of Bastogne, Belgium. It is cold. Metal snaps at edges, oil thickens, men's breath freezes on collars. Artillery doesn't sleep. To keep it awake, Logistics must do wartime alchemy. Coal or gasoline to keep prime movers reliable. Antifreeze correctly mixed. Powder temperature tracked because muzzle velocity drifts in bitter air. A tot calculated for a summer day will arrive late in a winter forest, unless you know your MV in the cold. The US received that lesson early and kept the notebook updated. Others learned it the hard way. Heat in the desert is the reverse sin. Mirage bends the eye. Powder gets hot in limber boxes. Propellant temp hikes velocity and throws long. Unless you detune your firing solution, bearings run hot and seize. And if your guns move by wheeled tractors, tire failure silently rewrites your fire plan. The 8th Army and Daké both became mechanics first and gunners second when the sun argued with math. Dust is the quiet killer of reliability. Air filters matter more than calibers. It isn't sexy to print. We kept the oil clean, but it decides whether a barrage next week is a barrage or a rumor. Observe any good battery in summer France. Tarps over crates, filter elements swapped, cyclonic cleaner bowls emptied at every halt. If you don't respect dust, you get one good day of fire. And then a month of maintenance while the enemy writes history. Water cheats in 2 costumes. At a river crossing, it drags your shell trucks into mud so deep that ammo density near the guns collapses. In rain, it turns your fuses and primers into chemistry experiments, unless your quartermasters are priests of dry storage. The solution is not courage. It is procedures. Splash shields for intakes, oiled cloths over connectors, caveats in the fire plan for wet ground shocks and dud rates. The army that rehearsed wet shot better than the army that hoped for dry. These riders aren't abstract. They're multipliers and divisors in an equation you can feel in your skin. If your counter-battery kill chain is 5 minutes from flash to steel in fair weather, what is it in sleet at dusk? If your tart math assumes 2% dud rate but water makes it 7%, what does that do to effect? Men who win do not pretend the weather is neutral. They price it into the barrage, the march, the resupply, and the morale. Case chain. Ardennes Ridge, December 1944. With VT fuses. American airbursts turn pine trees into shrapnel chandeliers. The cold slows everything, but the slow applies to both sides. The difference is preparation. Firing tables corrected for temperature. Anti-freeze where it counts. Road crews keeping the approach lanes open, so ammunition keeps arriving. When German attacks meet steady American shells in the cold, the attack's clock cannot add minutes. It must subtract objectives. Case chain, Tunisia, 1943. Dust and heat change gun crew posture. Sight lenses receive cloth hoods. Powder is stored in shade. And the TOT at El Guettar lands because somebody cared about powder lots and meteor messages more than about posterity. That is the hard, unromantic arithmetic of survival. Case chain, Italy, 1944. Water in rivers and rain punishes those who didn't carry tarps and seals, and cold in high passes teaches an ordnance class at midnight. Yet the guns talk on time because ammunition points were pre-sighted on firm ground, because surveyors insisted on good benchmarks even when the infantry wanted to move, and because signalers spliced wire in the rain until messages were clocks again. To end where we began, the best artillery officer is a logistician with a chronometer. He loves the guns, yes, but he loves the clock more. And the men most of all, because every minute he steals back from chaos is a minute the rifleman doesn't have to buy with blood. Continue. If this episode changed how you watch war footage, if now you see the schedule behind the shells, then we did our job. Next time we dive even deeper into the kill chain from OP to fuse to fragment, and how camouflage and deception twist that chain into knots. If you enjoy expert-level military analysis with real dates, real units, and real mechanics behind the headlines, subscribe, like, and share this video to support the channel. It tells the algorithm to deliver this story to more people who care about truth in military history. See you in the next episode.